Balaram Halway is the enigmatic narrator and protagonist of The White Tiger. He tells of his rise from poverty in rural India to successful business entrepreneur in the city of Bangalore. The pathway for Balaram from India's dark heart to the light of the modern business class entangles him in bribery, corruption, and, ultimately, murder. Balaram transforms his identity by destroying who he once was and everything associated with his former life. Balaram reveals the events of his life in a series of letters he writes but does not send to the Premier of China, soon to arrive in India on an official visit. Believing that the Premier needs to know the truth about India, Balaram details the story of his transcendence as a modern-day parable. Balaram is born in the village of Laxmangar, which is controlled by 4 ruthless landlords, described as the wild boar, the stork, the buffalo, and the raven. Unnamed as a baby and referred to only as boy, Balaram becomes known as the White Tiger when a visiting school inspector notes his rare intelligence and talents. After Balaram leaves school, the stork hires him as the second driver for his family, who move to Delhi. Balaram is a proud and dutiful worker, although he witnesses the stork's family's corrupt business dealings. Things take a turn for the worse when the family expect Balaram to take the blame for a crime he did not commit. Through his experience as a driver for a very rich family, Balaram becomes highly critical of what he sees as 2 Indias. Through a mechanism he describes as the rooster coop, the rich keep the poor in servitude, and the poor guarantee their own domination through their trustworthiness and submission. Balaram tires of his servitude and the seedy world of the rich in Delhi. After seeing a white tiger in a cage on a visit to the zoo, he decides to break free of his own imprisonment. He murders his master, Mr. Ashok, steals the money intended for bribes, and escapes to the city of Bangalore. He uses this money to begin his own taxi service. However, just like his former masters, he too becomes corrupt. He bribes police and other powerful people to ensure his business becomes successful and to cover up the murder and theft. In his novel, Aravind Adiga shines an unrelenting and critical light on some of the serious problems in modern India. Adiga focuses on India's rise as an economic superpower and the increased divide between the rich and the poor. His intention is to focus on identity as a choice between a destiny determined by class and birthplace and a future created from self-made opportunities and reinventions. To draw attention to the divisiveness of modern life in India and to give voice to narratives of oppression, disenfranchisement, and servitude. To paint a picture of India as a rapidly emerging economic superpower of the 21st century, and how the rising middle class and an historical hierarchical divide based on the caste system serve to entrench poverty and restrict social mobility. He seems to pose the question, at what cost is India's global economic rise? He also intends to present Balaram as the voice of India's dispossessed, disempowered underclass, as well as the self-confident and morally ambiguous voice of India's future. He seems to highlight the injustices of a highly stratified society perpetuated by power, corruption and greed, and to highlight how loyalty to family, religion and moral teachings render the poor complicit in their own subjugation. Finally, Adiga poses moral questions associated with the choice between fate and freedom, compliance and revolution, morality and corruption.